Okay, so good morning and welcome. So my name is Gianluca Misurata, and well, I'm a founder and vice president on technology diplomacy of Inspiring Futures, and also the scientific director of AI for Gov Accelerate, or AI for GovX. And also here I'm actually with my hat as a delegate of the president of ᴅᴇᴛᴇ, that is an Italian association that will be presented later, for the organization of the International Forum on Digital and Democracy, IFDAD. That is an event that is organized regularly by ᴅᴇᴛᴇ in collaboration with other organizations in Europe and worldwide. And this year we've been very happy to be hosted by the World AI Cannes Festival, so thanks to Giovanni Baldassari, Marco Landi, and the organizer also of ᴅᴜᴜᴜᴜ, that is one of the co-organizers of this session. And we also have the pleasure, and you will see through the discussion today, to work in cooperation with, we organize this also in cooperation with the Orbis project. That is a project led by Politecnico di Milano, of which I'm also the coordinator of the scientific advisory board. And so some of the panelists here are leading research as part of this project that has a specific focus on AI and democracy. So try to understand actually how we can use artificial intelligence to improve deliberative democracy. So not just looking at the risks and the challenges that artificial intelligence is bringing to our society, and we will discuss these issues as well, but more specifically we will also try to see how we can potentially use these technologies, very powerful, to improve our democratic systems. So we have, and I was told that some people may actually join us as they are in other sessions. Normally in these events there is a bit of delays, and so we will try in the next hour and a half, more or less, to be entertaining, so, and also engage you in the discussion. So if you have questions, start planning for them. And we have a very good, I would say excellent line of speakers here today. We have for sure Francesca Rossi, that you may have already known. She's been involved in the World AI Cannes Festival since the inception, and she's in the honorary committee, and she's actually a leading expert on ethics of artificial intelligence, and I mean, has been involved also as in Europe and in the US in the discussion on global artificial intelligence governance and the various implications at the policy and research level. We have Cecilia Danesi, that is joining us actually from Argentina, although she's half Italian, and as well, and she's a science writer, an academic, and a lawyer with a special expertise on, let's say, the impact of artificial intelligence and technologies on human rights, and also on gender, and we will discuss also these issues. And Enrico Fagnoni, that is an entrepreneur specialized in neurosymbolic artificial intelligence. That is the new normal, let's say, and we will discuss a bit about this. I know yesterday there were already some presentation on this topic. Elena Cabrio, that is, I mean, she plays home because she's a full professor here at the Université Côte d'Azur, and she's a member also of the INRIA i3 team, and chair of the AI chair at the Interdisciplinary Institute for Artificial Intelligence, the 3IA Côte d'Azur, on AI and natural language. And she's also, as Enrico, involved in the Orbis project I mentioned before. Davide Formica is also here representing ᴅᴇᴛᴇ. He's a member of the board, and he will tell us a bit more about ᴅᴇᴛᴇ. And then I will moderate the discussion, and we will have, I'm sure, a very interesting debate. So I leave the floor now to Davide for a few minutes of introduction to the ᴅᴇᴛᴇ and the reason of this event today, that, as I said, is also our annual international forum on digital and democracy. So thank you.
Hello. Good morning everyone. Thank you for being here, listening this session. As I thought, Mr. ᴅᴇᴅᴇ already mentioned, Copernicani is an association, a no-profit organization in Italy. It was born between 2017 and 2018, and with the aim, let's say, to take care of some important topics related to digital transformation. Because if digital transformation was something assumed already since the beginning of the 2000s, let's say, in business, okay, it was not so clear in politics, institutions, but also in the economy and the society. And so the aim of Copernicani indeed is exactly this one, to take care of the digital transformation and the impact of digital transformation, innovation in general, but specifically with the focus on institutions, politics, economy, and society. Maybe if we can go ahead with the slide, or if I can use the pointer, I don't know. No problem. Is it working, this one? Okay. And what we do? Policies and recommendations, governance and participation, and disseminations. Let's say that the topic that we address today, in general, with this step of our journey in IFDAD, International Forum for Digital and Democracy, is more related to governance and participation, and of course to dissemination. Governance and participation because since the beginning, we were approaching software in an open source way very rigorously, to develop or to take what was already present also sometimes in the open source environments, tools for transparency and participations. And of course, this is something related to deliberations. And we were starting with the registration of gov.it. That's our, let's say, box where we put all the folders related to open source applications. Enrico, for sure, was one of the main protagonists for this. You can go on gov.it and you will find a long list of pointers, web addresses to go in our open source folders. And dealing with these kind of tools, of course, we had the opportunity to be part of the consortium addressing Orbis as augmenting participation, co-creation, trust, and transparency. And it's a quite interesting consortium with the aim to build a kind of platform where the focus is to try to find new ways, given by the impact of digital transformation on democracy and in general the way that institutions are in relations of people. And the aim is to try to find new ways, that's not the socials, okay, to keep closer or to open a journey where to keep closer citizens to institutions. This is the aim of this project. And inside this project, there is POLISORBIS. POLISORBIS, let me say, it's a work done from Copernicani with the invaluable contribute of Enrico. He will tell you much more. Polis was an already existing application in an open source way. It's quite interesting because it's a way to analyze opinion. It's very interesting from the sociology methodology because it merges qualitative and quantitative aspects. And so it provides the opportunity to scale in a significant way, address also potentially hundreds, many people in the population that you want to address. And the work that we did was to adapt policy to the European rules. So fully compliant with GDPR, of course, and taking this application more, yes, let's say the first topic is the compliance with the European rules. And that's one of the applications inside of Orbis, of course. But Enrico will tell you more. And if you want to go ahead.
Okay, no thanks, Davide. Thanks for the introduction to one of the associations that is, organizing this event, and all the work that is being done also within the Orbis project. And I think here we are all, let's say, converted in a sense or the others. We are at the World AI Cannes Festival, so but we all know that artificial intelligence is on one side a very powerful, fantastic opportunity for humanity. On the other side, it's a big risk, it's a challenge. The AI Action Summit in Paris this week is also showing how this has geopolitical implications. And now this forum, I think, for the first time is also associated, in fact, to this high-level event here in France. And clearly, I'm sure you have heard, or if not read, the book of ഍ᴏᴟ on the hypnocracy. This new regime that manipulates perception, radically transforming our relationships with reality. That actually the sacerdotes of this new mantra are Donald Trump and Elon Musk, exemplifying somehow this also risk of having hypnotic narratives, or as he call it, algorithmic edging and dark resistance, potential, let's say, dangers for our society. And clearly, this can bring us to a number of problems also on our democratic systems. And that's why we have been looking at how artificial intelligence could or is actually disrupting our digital governance systems, and then somehow is redefining what I call the polity, no? That is the third phase of politics, which encompasses all those aspects that concern the definition of the political community. So it's not just the government and the industry and the civil society, but all us as let's say a digital democratic agora, as we are here in the Agora Alan Turing room, is probably a concept we should look at. And as today, 14 February, is also St. Valentine, let me start from this fantastic group of female experts we have gathered here. And so my first question goes to Francesca Rossi, because of course, you are, as we said before, one of the leading experts on AI ethics. You were in Paris alongside the summit in the various events that were organized there, and you can give us a global perspective on what are the perceived impact that artificial intelligence is already having on our democratic systems, also because you have the privilege observatory of being a European living in the US. So, how did we get to this situation where basically now it's almost impossible to distinguish between different reality systems, and actually there is a continuous cross-alteration of the states of human beings, that we can maintain a core of critical presence, but that can also limit our freedom, our autonomy of thought.
Yes, thank you. So maybe I will start by saying that Yes, AI can be involved in this spreading of misinformation that can confuse people. But can be involved in two ways. There is an AI itself can generate misinformation, because we know the large language model are, by the way they are built, they can hallucinate. And so they can generate text that is very plausible, very well written, but also factually incorrect. And this unintentionally can be spread by people that use these large language models and don't realize that what they get is not factually correct, and so they can use that information themselves so that they can spread it, share it with others, and so on. But then there is another way that AI can also and by the way, this way of AI generating misinformation that then can spread is not because somebody, some programmer made a mistake or there is a bug in the code, but because the way they are built. Large language models are not built to recognize what is true and what is false. They're built to generate text given some probability distribution, internal probability distribution of how words follows one another. But then, of course, there is another way that AI can be used intentionally to generate misinformation, like with the idea of deepfakes. So the fact that AI capabilities can be used to generate videos, generate sound, can generate voices, can generate pictures that are not true, but that are indistinguishable from reality. And this has been used already, has been used even in the context of democratic elections, about candidates in several countries. So that is where people intentionally use AI capabilities to generate in not factually true information, and then intentionally spread it to confuse electors, to confuse people, to generate some confusion in the perception. So there are many things that people are trying to do to first of all, about hallucination, to detect hallucination, to educate people that are using large language models in checking the facts that they receive from the large language model on more trusted sources. So there are things that people can be educated, and most of the times when people unintentionally spread this kind of misinformation is because they are not aware that this is something that can happen when interacting with the large language model. And there are also ways that people are trying to work on to make these systems more reliable by combining large language models with other systems. No? In an architecture which is more complex, there are several pieces. One of them is a large language model, but then there are others that are more so-called symbolic. They're more less based on data-driven approaches, and they can check, this misinformation and so on. So this is connected also to the neuro-symbolic approaches of AI. There are also ways that people are putting together to detect deep fakes, to detect when a picture is being generated by AI or manipulated with AI to make it, to generate pieces even of the picture that is not coming from reality. So, for example, a friend of mine, ʀᴏ has a system that has detected, for example, you may remember one of the first pictures of Kate Middleton, where it was discovered that in several pieces it was manipulated, and that was detected by an AI-based system that was able to detect that that was a manipulation. But of course, AI can also be used. So these two ways of spreading and generating misinformation shows that it's not really my focus, I think, is not really at AI is risky, but also people intentionally using AI to spread misinformation and confuse others. So, and in that respect, I think that the focus on people, besides focus on working on the technology, is very important. So, so the AI itself can help people, make people more aware and make people more open to understanding that there are different opinions, that they have to check what is real and what is not real, that this is the state we are working. AI has capabilities of producing information which is not real but looks real. And so the idea that AI itself can help people reflect more and be more aware of what they are given and how to use that information, how to assess the reality, the truthfulness of that information, and how to use it also in policies, which is not necessarily at the level of people in government or policymakers, but the level of everybody that should be open to understanding that there are different opinions and reflecting on this information that is given to them, and being able to understand and compare different opinions that are coming, even if we are not careful. Of course, we tend to live in these bubbles of opinions that are all similar to us. So AI can help us and can be built in a way, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit later, can be built in a way that pushes us to look at other opinions and being able to find compromises. So that can help in making better policies and a bit reduce this confusion given by misinformation, not just at the level of the policymakers, and this AI can help as well, but the level of each one of the users of AI.
Grazie, Francesca. Thanks a lot. It's very clear and actually very much in line, in fact, with the, let's say, with the discussion and the work, the research work of the Orbis project. In fact, that goes in that direction with the Polis Orbis that will be presented later. But nos vamos ahora a Argentina, no? Let's move to Argentina with Cecilia.
Andiamo.
That has also very in-depth knowledge of the European approach to artificial intelligence, because it's clear. I mean, you have this multidisciplinary approach, not only the legal and AI background, but also in your not the last one, because there's a new one, but in one of your most important book, The Empire of Algorithms, you underline that one of the key concerns in the debate about AI is how actually this affects society, and whether we should actually fear the potential catastrophic effects. I mean, there's been many others that have also been warning us by the risks, and clearly, I mean, we know that even defining and regulating AI is a big challenge, and the EU proposed now already some time, and actually at the beginning of this month, the AI Act, so the regulation proposed by the EU, entering into force with regard to the prohibition of the most high-risk systems. So somehow it seems that if we go back to what I was saying before, this hypnocratic society in which we live, we somehow are stopping to consider even the normal ethical and legal implications of any action, and we bring them to a digital sphere. And so is this what is happening, or should we actually instead embrace the complexity of which Francesca, in a very simple, not simplistic way, was actually enlightening us?
Thank you so much, Gianluca, and thank you so much to Copernicani, Orbis, and Europea to invite me to be here. It's an honor for me. Well, as you mentioned before, one of the concepts that I work in the Empire of Algorithm is, because when I was writing this, I was thinking, how can we be aware of the real risk of the AI? now in terms of democracy, because it's our topic back in general. And I work with a concept of the idea of the visible risk and invisible risk. Visible risk is when we are talking about AI systems that we can touch, that are more tangible. For example, killer robots, autonomous weapons. In this case, we have no doubt that there is a big danger about this kind of system, but we are not talking about regulation in that cases. In fact, in the case of the AI Act, it's explicit exclude this kind of system or uses of the AI because this, the national defense is excluded of the competencies that the European state delegates to the European Union. So for that reason, for example, in that area that is very dangerous for democracy, for countries, for everyone, it's completely out of the discussion of regulation. On the other hand, we have the invisible AI. It's this AI that is everywhere, as we know, is everywhere. We cannot touch it because it's not inside another product, a robot or something like this, but it's very, very dangerous. Why? Because most of the people is not aware that it's being influencing, for example, when we are going to vote, when we are going to decide who we are going to marry or what are we going to buy, we are not aware that an algorithm is influencing us to make a decision. I would like to compare this with the virus, and that was, for example, one of the main problems of the pandemic. When we are talking about something that we cannot touch, so we are talking about an invisible AI that is everywhere, a virus is the same. It's very difficult to take care of a virus because we are not watching. And we realize that we get the virus when we feel a symptom, but before not. With the AI, it's the same. If we are not studying or investigating what are the real risks of the AI or how the AI is impacting in our democracy, we cannot be aware and we cannot resolve the problem of these impacts. And there are also another problems related to the impact or this AI, invisible AI. For example, hallucination that Francesca mentioned before, algorithmic bias, and there are plenty of these risks that are affecting democracy. So, preventing from AI risk, it's very difficult due to its imperceptibility, first of all. We are not aware that the AI is there. And apart from that, those who own the AI, that are companies that it's not with one of my hand to mention, prefer to keep us in ignorance about its dangers. Why? Because it's easier to manipulate us if we are lack of knowledge of their risk, if we don't investigate their consequences. So, what are the scenario today? That we have masses who defend the non-regulation of the AI under the fallacy that it represents a brake on innovation, which is completely false. Why? First of all, the most innovative, or one of the most innovative areas, or the companies or industries that most earn are more regulated. For example, finances, bank, drugs, etc. are banks too, are very, very regulated, but they are completely areas that are developing innovation and a lot. So, more than ever, I think that we have to not stop talking about this topic, regulation, AI governance, especially AI governance, AI ethic governance, and we have to work on this because our ignorance, our lack of awareness is going to be the most beneficial to those who want to earn with this ignorance. And the first that is going to be affected is our democracy. So I have the doubt that if we can still talk about democracy as this concept that most of us study in our school or in our universities. I think that we have to change the idea, and also we have to change the idea of how can we interpret our human rights. When we create our human rights, we were thinking in a war that the way to affect them was completely different, because our danger was something, again, visible, tangible. Now, our main risks are invisible. We cannot touch this. So we have to reinterpret our human rights in order to can protect humanity from the real risk.
No, gracias. And yes, indeed, the world is accelerating very fast from also, because of technology, and we have to probably change also the paradigms and the lenses on which we are looking at certain phenomena. Let me go now to Enrico, because indeed one of the trend that is emerging, I mentioned before, and Francesca already, I know she's working on this, but now everybody is starting looking at this new concept of neuro-symbolic artificial intelligence. That is basically the combination of, the machine learning, the deep learning, the generative AI. Everybody now is talking about. That is recent, not machine learning, that is actually the old, let me allow, stupid AI, and the new one that seems to be intelligent, but in reality is just, let's say, more stupid, but as a more accelerated way. On the other side, there is what they call the GOFI, the good old-fashioned AI, that is actually the more rational, symbolic artificial intelligence, and now are being combined, and we will see later that there are there is interesting research and work on that. But why we can say this exploded right now is because if you look at two of the Nobel Prizes last year on chemistry and physics, they both have the common pattern of using machine learning with artificial neural networks. And this is something unique, the first time that we have this. Clearly this made emergent 2024 as the year of artificial intelligence, not to mention what was already somehow discussed, the fact that we had the big techs emerging with OpenAI and now DeepSeek recently. So clearly we are at the center of this discussion. So Enrico, how we solve the problem? Because on one side we have this high technological advancement, but on the other side we need also to try to find some solution. So I know you are working on this concept of the human digital twin as part of the ᴑᴜ, so please tell us.
Yes, thank you, Gianluca, to invite me to this wonderful panel. I'm sorry with you for I apologize for my bad English, but that is. Anyway, I want to speak 2 words about ᴑᴜ from a technical point of view. ᴑᴜ is just a fork of an existing open source software that the name is Polis. It's more than 10-year-old project. In the context of Orbis project, we modify this software with the civic hacker teams of gov0.it and Copernicani staff in order to make it compliant with GDPR rules and to make it installable in Europe. That's the most important work in ᴑᴜ. ᴑᴜ is a great conversation between peoples about specific topics. It let people, this software let people to propose a statement and vote all the statement proposed by other people. Upvote, downvote, and in the background the system analyzes the answers with old-fashioned artificial intelligence algorithm, classifying the answer and detect opinion groups and is also able to detect divisive statement and the statement that get more shareable statement against people. And this is very useful to create consensus about topics. Polis and ᴅᴜ was used in a lot of, really a lot of use cases, mainly in Asia, in Taiwan, sometimes also in Italy. And now in Orbis we plan to use much more in our pilot. Then there is another software, completely different, that we call it a human digital twin, that you can think as a platform that builds artificial intelligence that mimics personas that are based on demographic and ideological data. So is able to create a digital twin of a not real, imaginary person, let me see. And this is something where ᴛᴏ AI is useful, because we define these digital twins in terms of a vector of sorry for the technician, a vector of dimensions that are mapped on symbolic concept, on specific aspect, anagraphic, so the age of the virtual agent, the sex, the instruction level, and so on. But also other things that are the political orientation, the religious orientation, and also the sexual orientation, why not? And the human character traits applied to the character of the digital twins. How this can help policymakers? Yes, because they speak as a real person, they can be used to get idea about what people think and to test policies before start to ask to real people what they think. And this is exactly what we do. In this picture you see some of the dimensions in which we map the digital twins. We use at present more than 100 dimensions, taking care also what the digital agents like, what dislike, what is reading, and so on. And the value comes when you put Polis Orbis and human digital twin together. What we are doing together with Professor Leonardo Bianchetti, that today is not here, unfortunately, because he could join us. We are starting to create a panel of, let me see, thousands of digital twins that mimics the composition of the Italian population in our experiment. And we allow this panel of digital twins to participate to a Polis conversation. That means that we are asking to this panel of human digital twins some idea about very controversial topics. We are trying immigration, we are trying environment and climate change. We are asking about inequality. Very interesting. So these people, digital people, arrive to some statement, and we find the most important statement that generate consensus between different kind of opinion groups. With this information, a policymaker is able to design a policy, a real policy, and to put this policy on vote on a panel or a real person. So this short the time the analyst is able to need to create an idea, and already knowing what is the most important things that create consensus on this kind of divisive arguments. Okay, there is no time to see a real example, but anyway, with ᴅᴜ it's possible to see what is the consensus generated. You see in this case just an example of two opinion groups with a set of statements that generate consensus. What we are doing with Leonardo Becchetti is to publish a paper that will be ready, I think, in the second quarter of this year, where we experiment these methods. We have a message from Leonardo. I asked the control room if possible to get the video, Leonardo.
The digital revolution in considering social media has been shown to be an instrument of polarization, of division of ideas. This is what the literature says when dealing with the effect of Twitter and now X. But we know that artificial intelligence can be used also as an instrument to create consensus on different opinion across people for a given topic. And in this field, we already have some literature. There is a very interesting work on science on Habermas machine, which is a work where the Habermas machine of Google is basically a digital mediator which works with groups of humans and in different steps proposes synthetic messages which try to reconcile the view of the different participants. And the process ends up with a consensus statement. What we show in this literature, what we want to show with the work we are doing, the research we are doing, is to create a process of convergence based on digital intelligence, which is artificial intelligence, which is absolutely virtual. We create a group of virtual individuals, personas, reflecting the distribution of characteristics of the Italian population. We give them some seed statements based on very important topics like and controversial topics like ecological transition, migrants, sides of government, redistributive policies. And we, the seed transitions are taken from the European Social Survey. So from a survey which is going on since 20 years in all European countries, where we have answers of around 300,000 individuals. Then the work of the group of personas starts with the seed statements, and it evolves and it arrives to consensus statements. Then we will work to see whether this consensus statements is representative of what the real population does. Basically, our approach has an important advantage with respect to the one of the Habermas machine, which is much more efficient in sense of time. But what it has to be shown is to be ex post effective. And so it is important to test whether on real sample of real representative individuals, the same results are achieved. And this will be our work in the next days, and we hope we will contribute with that to the wonderful direction of research which is discussed in this great event that you created. Thank you very much, and sorry for not being there with you.
Okay, so thanks Enrico and Leonardo for a very, let's say, fascinating research and clearly at the edge of the current debate. And so we have some hope that mixing digital and real people, maybe we can find some solutions to the challenges of our times. So let's go back now to Cannes and Tunis with Elena Cabrio, professor at the Université Côte d'Azur, and she has a huge experience exactly on how advanced decision support systems can support exchange of information and opinions in different domains, including politics, and clearly in particular using natural language processing. And you are also contributing to the Orbis project on this, and so maybe you can give us a bit of your view.
Sure. Thanks a lot for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to present our work. So yes, so we are a team, as we said before, across the University of Côte d'Azur and INRIA. And our main topic is natural language processing and understanding. And more specifically in the team, whose name is Marianne, we focus on creating resources and developing models for natural language computational natural language argumentation. So basically, most of our work are on extracting computationally, of course, extracting arguments from natural language texts of different kind, politics, medical data, etc. Understanding those arguments, meaning like we want to be able to detect which are the claims, which are the premises, which are the interaction between different kind of arguments. We evaluate their quality. We generate new arguments, and we try to do reasoning on it. This is actually most of our projects are around this line of work. In the context, for instance, to be a bit more precise, on the Orbis project, what we do is so there are platforms like Because or like Polis Orbis in which people could actually put forward their arguments about a specific stance. So there is a general stance like, I don't know what you think about vaccines or wars, etc., that can be as precise as you want. And that users can position themselves with respect to those stances, saying, okay, I agree with that, I don't. And they put forward evidences, or maybe not, but their judgment on this specific stance. But they position themselves manually. So they say, okay, here is my opinion, and this is, I'm supporting this other opinion of another user, etc., What we do on our side is to basically detect those arguments out of text and to position themselves with respect to other arguments automatically. We use neural networks, classification algorithms to do that. And inside a specific argument, as I said before, so we are able to say, okay, this is a claim, these are the evidences that the users put forward to support its claim. So are they valid, they are not, etc. And then when we have plenty of people in a discussion, we are able to somehow cluster similar arguments together and say, okay, those ones support a specific target argument thanks to this reason, etc. So we try to make our methods like somehow explainable, okay, trying to understand why we detected those arguments this way and we position them in this other specific way. All the work we do in Orbis basically relies on another bunch of work that we do in the team, and in which we worked quite a lot on political debates. So we created a huge resource with all the political from the US from 1960 to 2020, and we collected all those data, we annotated them with all the argumentative components and also fallacious arguments. And we have we developed a tool. This is just a demo. If you want to check it, it's called the Dispute tool. And what we do is to be able to parse all the debates of the politicians in the US And what we do is, again, to extract all the claims, the hypotheses, to position themselves, the arguments, as being supporting other arguments or not. We detect fallacious argument according to several categories. That is quite of interest, because when you put everything together in a view, you see which kind of politician use, for instance, some specific persuasion strategy or some communication strategy as well. So this is kind of interesting, because then at the end you can put everything together and see, for instance, how topics have changed in the different years, how persuasion strategies have changed, which politician focus more on some specific aspects, etc., etc. Which is their strategy of communication? Do they attack a lot other arguments? Do they put forward a lot of evidences for their claims, etc., etc.? So basically, this allows deep study of the argumentation, of human argumentation, actually. And well, our goal is always to provide several, how to say, indicators for a good decision making. Because when we have all this information, we can see a bit more clearly in what kind of information we have. Just to conclude, in the team, we also work on abusive language detection and misinformation detection with similar strategies. So always with the goal of pointing to some, let's say, well, misinformation in a large sense. Thank you.
Merci. And I mean, we've seen quite interesting, research topics on mixing, moreover, academic and industry, because also here you were mentioning your relation with INRIA and the fact that there is this need also to look at this from a multidisciplinary perspective. And so let me go back to Francesca, because I know that, we were talking before. I mentioned the 2 Nobel Prize of last year basically on AI, but actually in 2022, the Nobel Prize in Economics, Daniel Kahneman, that unfortunately left us exactly on last year, he developed in his famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow, basically the foundations of behavioral economy that are very much, let's say, related to what Elena was saying, or Enrico, because basically in the political campaign now more and more candidates and parties are using these techniques to nudge into a certain voting preference, even people that may have different opinions, but they are perceiving that candidate may solve that problem in a better way. So this, let's say, neurosymbolic artificial intelligence is now emerging, is somehow the combination of the system 1 of the brain, so the thinking fast of Daniel Kahneman, that is basically the machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, very fast, accelerated also outcome that is generated by these tools, and the thinking slow, the system 2, that is actually what I mentioned before, the good old-fashioned AI, the more rational. And we realized with Francesca that she's working specifically, she started with Professor Kahneman a few years ago to work on this with a project that called, in fact, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. So maybe can you give us a bit of an overview?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Danny was a psychologist, of course, but he was really very interested in AI and in the relationship between human and machine intelligence. In fact, few months ago, 1 year ago, a few months before he passed away, he wrote a very short contribution on the relationship between humans and machine intelligence that he donated to the book that I recently published in Italian. So if you read Italian, you can read also that part. He developed this theory, as you said, of our mind. It's a cognitive science theory of our mind having these 2 modalities of making decisions. One is very reactive, almost unconscious, thinking fast, and one is the thinking slow, where we reflect, we dedicate all our attention solving a problem, and usually it's more reliable and more careful. And so in my project, which is called Thinking Fast and Slow in AI, we try to understand how to take this theory and translate it into something that can make sense in AI by knowing that AI is a completely different space than the human mind. Humans have a lot more limitations, like in some dimensions compared to AI, like our memory, the analysis of the amount of data, and so on. But we also are much more efficient than AI on other dimensions. So, so while translating this theory into AI, we had to figure out a question like, what is that is a bug or a feature in how we do things, we humans, and what do we want to keep in translating this into AI, what instead is better to do differently in AI. So at the end, we came up with this very simple architecture where there are some so-called fast solvers, so data-driven approaches that can solve problems by analyzing data using traditional machine learning or generative AI, LLMs, and so on, and also the so-called slow solvers that are more symbolic AI, like a planner or a scheduler, no? Things that, as you said, are still used, by the way, but were used and developed also many, many years ago in AI, and that work very well, are very reliable, always correct to solve a problem, but they have the disadvantage that they are very rigid in terms of how they can deal with real-life situations, and for some problems where we don't have a symbolic approach, like perception problems, they cannot be used. So this combination of fast solvers and slow solvers, that they're then governed by a metacognitive component that decides which one of the two are better to use for the problem that comes in, but not only which one of the two kinds of solvers to use, but also how to combine them together. For example, through feedback loops, through the fast solvers, the system one solvers, feedback loops that where the metacognitive component evaluates what the system one solver can provide in terms of possible candidate solution to the problem, and then gives feedback to the system one solver so that it can help him behave better. So this is similar in some sense at the conceptual level, what is done now with like the second phase with LLMs, no? Like O1 or R1 are LLM-based systems, but they're not just LLMs. They're LLMs with a lot of chain of thought and feedback loops, where an external verifier helps the LLM makes a better solution, better response. So this architecture has been used and to try to understand what it can do to be more efficient in using these kinds of solvers, different approaches of AI on various domains. One was a very simulated grid navigation, another one was the planning domain of many different kinds of benchmarks. But also we use this analogy, this inspiration from the thinking fast and slow theory on another way, which is not in this first description of this architecture, is how to use this thinking fast and slow theory to build AI machines that can use this similar thinking fast and slow combination as human beings. But the other direction that also follows this approach, this project, is to build AI systems that can interact with human beings in a way that pushes human beings to use more our system 1 or our system 2 or our metacognition capabilities when one of these modalities is needed, in the scenario when it is needed. In particular, system 2 capabilities in human beings are those that are related to reasoning and reflection on what we are doing and metacognition. And this is something that usually can be used to introduce friction between what the AI system is recommending us to do and what we finally end up deciding. And sometimes this friction is needed to avoid just taking what AI is telling us without even thinking about it and just making that decision. So helping human beings to reflect more and to be more careful about their decision given what AI can provide. So using AI to stimulate our slow thinking, because we know that many interaction with the digital world actually stimulate mostly our fast thinking, reactions, rather than the slow thinking. So instead, try to stimulate the slow thinking when it is needed. And this can be useful also not to stimulate the slow thinking only of the human beings that these interacting with AI, so by itself, but also in terms of stimulating the social capabilities of these human beings so that it can in interacting with the AI system can also avoid the decrease of the social capabilities, interacting also with other humans, because something that also is a danger with AI. Let me make one short comment about what was said before about companies, because I know it's very easy to go against companies and to say the companies are bad and they don't want anybody to know the risks. Well, it's not my company. I work at IBM. When LLMs came about, we published a table of more than 70 plus risks with large language models and generative AI. We made it available to everybody. So, and in general, you know, when I discuss about risks, I find many people also from many other companies. So I don't think that companies want to people not to know that there are risks in AI, but they want to know themselves, have their clients know them, have everybody knows it, and participate and being active in detecting and mitigating those risks.
Thanks. So I will give Cecilia the diritto di replica now, but before that, if you have questions, get ready. So after Cecilia, we can ask questions to all the speakers and panelists. But it's true that, I mean, and this week here in Europe, the big question is what's happening now. We had this summit and everybody signed the agreement, but the US and also the UK, a bit unexpectedly, now they're claiming because it was not clear. Maybe it was written in French, I don't know, but it clearly was not, I mean, two big powers are not in this. So are we going back to the kind of Far West of 5-6 years ago before all the discussion we had on this, or maybe we are accelerating the adoption and then we have to intervene on different things. But it's true that for, you know, the debate now is concentrating on having a few big companies and few people that have huge power that could be actually, at least is perceived as a potential risk also for the democratic system. So, Cecilia, you want to reply on this specifically?
No problem. When I have to reply another question, I can add something, but it's not me.
Yeah. But
if you want to continue,
yeah. I mean, in the sense that this is, I mean, somehow I'm also personally thinking that somehow we are getting to a false dilemma. No, this is, oh, should we regulate or innovate? I mean, there is also in the EU mantra this idea we innovate through regulation. that it's true to a certain extent. So is this really the problem, that there is someone that doesn't want to regulate and others that want to innovate and that you don't need the regulation? Or actually we need to find, I wouldn't say a balance, because there are some issues, and you mentioned before, that we cannot permit, not only in Europe, I think everywhere. So we shouldn't allow certain AI systems to do things that are illegal or not ethical anyway in the real or digital world. So how we face this alleged dilemma?
Thank you, Gianluca. Just one comment. It's not easy to say that a company is bad or good, because everything that you say has consequences. Of course, any company is going to contract my services after saying that. But I know that a lot of companies has a lot of thing of ethical in AI, of course, but we also know that some companies, when the researchers doesn't say what they have to, they then are out of the company, and we have a lot of very famous cases about this. But apart from that, and related to your question, well, first of all, I think that this idea of finding the balance between the regulation and innovation is the real challenge. The European Union, for example, is working about trying to find this balance from more than a decade that they are talking about regulation and innovation, but it's very difficult to reach. If we are talking about regulation, we need a balance around the countries and the globe and the regions, because when we are talking about technology, the technology doesn't recognize frontiers, barriers. They are everywhere. So we need to think in regions, in the globe, not just a regulation for a country. For example, in the case of the European Union, we have different rules that are related to AI, and this is not just about the AI Act. As we know, for example, the Digital Services Act has a transparency obligation for the digital platform algorithms that are very useful when we are talking about democracy, because it's the way to know how these algorithms work. Another example, for example, is the Product Liability Directive that was recently reformed, modified, and this reform was taking into account the circular economy and the digital technology, especially the AI. And apart from that, we know recently the Civil Liability Directive was withdrawn from the European Commission. And I think that, of course, there is a huge debate around this, because everyone is talking, and again, about this fallacy, no, another regulation is not necessary. But sometimes regulation is also a good point for innovation and also for companies. Why? Because if we have clear rules in civil liability regimes, this is going to be an harmonization around all the states of the European Union. For example, if you suffer a damage from an AI system, you can sue for this damage. You don't need a new directive for this. Everyone can sue for any damage. The idea of this directive was to have clear rules when somebody has a damage from an AI system. It's true that the directive talk about or contains a presumption of causality or cooperation in the proof, because we know AI, it's very complex to know how it is working or to have proofs about it. But on the other side, these clear rules in all of the European states has a lot of benefit, not just for the victim. First, as I mentioned before, the harmonization is very useful for companies, because they know in advance what are going to be the rules in case of a damage. So they can know in advance how many they have to spend, for example, if someone suffers a damage. Then it's a way to fight against monopolies. Why? Because for a small company, it's easier to put into the market a product that the regulation is the same in most of the countries, that if you have to adapt your product or services in each country of the European Union related to this. So it's a way to help small companies to be more productive and to be more innovative. And another point is the legal certainty. You are going to know what are the rules to play in this area. So sometimes regulation is very helpful also for private sector, because they know what are the rules that they have to play in some products, in some services, or in some area. And I just want to add that a very important thing that I think it's important when we are talking about the AI risk is the algorithmic audits. It's the evaluation of the AI system. We drink Coca-Cola every day, and nobody knows the receipt of the Coca-Cola, but we know that a company and administration has evaluated, and it say that it's good for, not good, but it's allowed for the human consumption. With the technology, when we are talking about high-risk algorithms, it's important to know that these are not helpful for the society. For example, with the digital platform algorithms. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, so now you see how complex is the topic and what are all the implications. So now in the next couple of hours, we will go more in depth. Now, so if there's any question, we only have 10 minutes. So I don't know if someone has some burning question or some comments. Otherwise, we can have a final round with all the speakers. So I don't see. Okay, so yes, please. Merci. Can you hear me?
Please.
I'm an entrepreneur. We are a service provider for international development, and we work a lot with Africa. Coming back to what some of you were saying, building consensus, helping democratic systems. So we see immediately a number of applications, possibly. Questions for you, gentlemen. I'm questioning the consensus thing, objective. So maybe because you're Italian and then you're in Italy, you're also very strong in this politically. Here, it's not the same. For example, in this country, in France, but obviously my point is consensus is not the best solution, to problems sometimes. So it depends on the objective you have, right? Using this approach that you are talking about. So I'm interested in your comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, you are true. There is no silver bullet. That's for true. Anyway, this sort of hidden artificial intelligence, because these have different views. Can you see different views? For instance, you can call it value or disvalue. That depends. For instance, by sure, you can use the output of this process with polyorbis together with digital twins in order to create a consensus. That you can use this for create a rhetoric value that is, let me see, a spin doctor for politics. That's a possibility. I don't know if this is good or not good, but I think it's already done. And then there is also a political and economical value, because Converse's statement helps the policymaker to imagine something new, not to adopt what artificial intelligence says. So this approach can be modulated because you need to create different kind of personas. For instance, of course, the Italian panel, it's very different from the French panel. because of many aspects, much more different from a US panel and so on, or a mixed panel. That's possible also to create some group of people from USA, from Europe, from Est, and to try in a virtual way to try some idea on convergence on very divisive topics. That's the idea. We are trying this kind of things by creating convergence statement and testing this convergence on real people. We don't avoid the opinion of the real people. That's very important. But we can short really a lot the process, because you already have an idea of how your people will react to your policy. That's what we think. I don't know if I answered to your question.
Thank you for your
you can speak.
Yes, indeed. We can then also keep discussing. And okay, there's another question here. And then naturally I will build on this for a last round for all.
Thank you. It was very interesting for me. I have a question for Cecilia.
Can you also introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, sure. I'm Sara, I'm from Italy, and I'm in charge of communication, and I'm a communication consultant, especially and also deeply in the digital communication, so I'm here just to get informed. So I have a question for Cecilia, but also for probably Enrico and the other ones. But after listening your considerations and your argumentations, can we consider that the algorithm in the political building thoughts for people, the algorithm can be considered as the enabler, and the AI as the instrument, the tool through which has been shaping the opinion of the people?
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, I think so that nowadays we cannot think in politics or political campaign or an election without thinking that everything is debating through social media. For example, we remember the case of Cambridge Analytica, but many others, where everything was like disputing around the social media platform. For me, the main point is that we have no clear information about how these algorithms and system works. So if we are talking about that, it's a platform where sometimes, or most of the time, the political election are debating and deciding there, we need more information about how does it works. That's my idea of why I think that, for example, the Digital Services Act that proposed transparency in these cases, or auditing or evaluating algorithms, it's a very important thing to do. Because we are talking about democracy, and it's not possible that our election or democracy were just depending on an algorithm. That's my idea to reflect on. Thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. It's actually, as we are getting to almost to the end, unfortunately, because it's a very interesting debate, and actually the last two questions brings to the real question, I guess, that is, I mean, we started discussing about this hypnocratized society in which we are risking to live, and so basically there are some technocrats, good or bad, maybe they are good, that want to govern, actually de facto are governing in the modern era what people think and then how they vote. Now, of course, we can also question if democracy is the right system or not. You know, there's, I mean, it has been told that Winston Churchill said, that is the less ineffective of the system, but at least it's one that tries to find a solution exactly in a democratic way. Yeah? So what are now, if we want to defend this system, because maybe someone could say, okay, we have technology now, let's in fact decide the digital twin to vote for us, so why we should care with going to the election and even discuss about politics. So shall we regulate or not? So what are the key issues, the priority that we should address? I mean, if you had, the possibility to influence in 1 minute, what is the key thing that we should address? Maybe we start from, just 30-second, 1 minute statement, or who wants to start? Okay.
I prefer that.
Okay.
No, really.
Silence is also
no,
good.
Really, because
sometimes it's better.
So, let me say, I was thinking also about the comment before. No, it's not about creating consensus. It's about trying to keep order in the disorder. This is what I would like to do if I had some magic. Yes, because really this is the risk. Few people are able to drive, and all the rest of the people are not conscious, or not aware of the fact that they are on probably a car or a big plane, and they don't know where it's going. So this is the risk. So it's not about creating consensus. Now the friend is gone, but is really more a matter to understanding where we are going, where a conversation is going. We start with one topic, I don't know, immigration, but during the open conversation we understand that the topic is not immigration itself, but probably another aspect of that we can consider. So that's all. This is mine.
Thank you. So.
You're right, but I think that artificial intelligence, in my opinion and my experience, can really help to destroy destroy division.
Yeah.
We start with idea. I started the idea of digital twins at the beginning of last year in a assembly of Copernicani. Mm-hmm. We are voting about, I don't remember, a position on energy. I don't know.
Well, also the patent matches in the past.
Okay, in something, and I get the idea. Okay, let's try to let vote a digital twins that was pre-trained as a Copernicano. And what happened in a secret way? No one knew. And the output was interesting because the statement that created the artificial intelligence was the most voted. And was really something that joined people. This is a value for me. So I hope artificial intelligence destroy divisions.
Thank you. Elena?
Well, what I think it's that it's really, really important today to keep and to support people in developing their critical thinking every time they use this kind of technology. And the way we try to do it is on the one side of the research, trying to dig deeper in all the methods that we use in order to make them, to better understand them somehow. So to make them interpretable and explainable without even discussing now what that means in reality, but really trying to understand all the biases, trying to see to which point we can really debias our networks, etc., with that, all that goes with that. And on the other side, I'm a professor at the university. In all my classes on natural language processing, I start saying, okay, think about what technology you use, that you LLMs are correlation machines. We try to understand better how they work, so that and then you have to go back home and tell them to your mother and to your friends, etc., how they work, and try to understand why they are so powerful, because they are, and good in plenty of aspects, but we need to understand how they work to do what Francesca was saying before, to understand which kind of information they produce, which are their limits, and therefore we can exploit the information they provide us, because it's important. They allows us to scale in different respects, but still keep on critical thinking about what they produce.
Thank you. Francesca, we'll need 30 seconds because we have to close.
Yeah, so yes, I agree. Does it work? Yeah. So I agree that transparency and awareness is the main thing, but again, there is a role to be played by the companies, the governments, the policymakers to push for transparency. And I welcome also the open source approach that we didn't talk about, but you mentioned at the beginning. So from the point of view of those that regulate, those that build AI, transparency. But from the point of view of everybody else, there is also a responsibility on that side, because it's easy to say, oh, they're not transparent, or they're not doing this, or AI is risky, AI is dangerous, and so on. Okay, be aware, inform yourself. Look at they are transparent. Look at the transparency documents. Look at the documentation. Look at it, because if you don't do that, then you're not. It's the responsibility of everybody to make sure that the whole AI ecosystem, the whole society, driven also supported by AI, can work in the best way.
Thank you. Just one.
1 second, the last one. 2 points. First, we need to build agreements with an intersectorial perspective more than ever. We need private sector, we need law, we need academia. So we need it. And this dialogue has to be with diversity, interdisciplinary, intergenerational, with all the diversity that we can reach. And second, I think one of the points that we mentioned around the panel was education and awareness. And this is a double responsibility, not just for government or companies, but also, as Francesca mentioned before, for us. Every time that we are using an algorithm, we are training it too. So we are also responsible and liable for what this algorithm is going to do later. So everyone is liable too.
Thank you. And indeed, training and capacity building for all levels, including policymakers, or especially policymakers, is fundamental. That's why I started saying this mentioning this new project. I have the pleasure to lead the AI for Gov Accelerate, AI for GovX, with 44 partners across Europe that is funded under the Digital Euro program, and we are engaging with the industry exactly to move faster on this. And next year, maybe we will have the pleasure to do together with Copernicani, if that Orbis, maybe IBM, and of course Europea, another event here at Cannes that I'm sure will become even more important, focusing on this topic and putting together really the change makers from industry. That is very important, it's fundamental, from government, academia, research. So a big round of applause for our panelists, and thanks a lot for you.